Hey, is there a better combo than barbecue and whiskey? BBQ and Barrels is back at Nationals Park on September 19th. This is the third annual celebration. It features unlimited pours from over 100 premium bottles: Buffalo Trace, Jack Daniels, Bardstown Bourbon, Catoctin Creek, and so much more. Enjoy delicious barbecue from local favorites, groove to live music, and bring home some great whiskey. BBQ and Barrels, September 19th at Nationals Park, where great whiskey meets incredible barbecue. Tickets are going quickly and are available at nats.com/bbqbarrels.
Join Move for Meals, a month-long fitness and fundraising challenge supporting food and friends. This October, you can walk, run, or bike wherever you are to help neighbors living with serious illnesses. Every $10 you raise provides one medically tailored meal delivered right to someone's home. With weekly wellness themes and fun challenges, Move for Meals is a chance to meet your fitness goals while fueling compassion in our community. Sign up today and make every step count at p2p.onecause.com/moveformeals or visit foodandfriends.org.
Today on CityCast DC, the Commanders kicked off their season over the weekend with a big win over the New York Giants. It's setting the stage for an interesting council vote in the next month over funding a new stadium at the old RFK site. And the fight now isn't over whether there should be a stadium, but in how much more DC could extract on things like affordable housing. It got us wondering, did DC get a good deal out of this? Or did we, as taxpayers, get stiffed? Michael Friedman from the University of Maryland is here ahead of the council's second vote to explain what they might want to change when the time comes. Today is Tuesday, September 9th. I'm senior producer Julia Karen, and here's what DC is talking about. Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start here. What exactly would you grade the Commanders and then also the DC Council for this deal that they struck?
Well, for the Commanders, I'd give them an A+. Other people's money is always the way to go about doing any kind of business, and the Commanders have been able to get $1 billion of other people's money. Now, for the council and Mayor Bowser, I'd give them both an F, just because the deal is so good for the Commanders, and it could have been a lot better for DC residents.
What precisely do you mean when you say it could have been a lot better for DC residents? Like, what are some specifics you're thinking about?
Well, a few things. I mean, first off, I think it's really the question, is a stadium really the best use of the RFK property? I mean, we're talking about 180 acres, 135 acres of which is developable. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the city of Washington. And is putting a stadium there really the best use of this opportunity? I don't think we ever really went through a process to get to that point.
So you talked about having a process to get to that point. In your ideal world, how should this have happened?
Well, I've done a lot of research on the Yards area and on Nationals Park. And we can talk about Nationals Park later. But the really interesting thing is that the city, once they had the opportunity to redevelop the Southeast Federal Center, which is really 60 acres right there, great part of town, they put out a call for proposals. They had a number of different developers come forward saying, this is how we are going to develop the area. This is our timeline. This is our investment. The city took a look at it and decided on Far City, DC, and that, much more than the stadium, is really been transformative for that part of town.
I know that there was an impact study done when it came to the new Commander Stadium at the old RFK site. Obviously, this is like hallowed ground for them. This is where they won Super Bowls, all that fun stuff. The Bowser administration did this impact study saying it would bring in a fair amount of revenue for the city. Is there any truth to that?
I wish there was. When I was doing research on Nashville about 25 years ago, I came across a memo from the head of the Chamber of Commerce to the mayor saying, we need an economic impact study that justifies this level of spending. And at the time, I was quite naive, and I thought, gee, it should be the other way around, that we determine the level of spending after we see what the impact is. Unfortunately, a lot of these economic impact studies that are produced by stadium consultants are PR documents. They tell the mayor, they tell the council, they tell the civic leaders what they want to hear in order to be able to talk to the public and say, we have all of these great impacts that are going to be caused by the stadium. Unfortunately, all the academics, independent economists who have looked at this, who aren't being paid to produce a consultant's report, there's an incredible amount of unanimity. The only difference being, is there a minimal positive impact or how bad the negative impact is? It's rare that an independent study finds a positive economic impact, like compared to zero, but certainly nowhere near the level that justifies hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion in public spending.
So break this down for me as someone who is not at all an economist. That's my brother's job. I know I know that Chairman Phil Mendelson renegotiated parts of this deal that would make it more beneficial to the city. There was a news conference that said some of the renegotiated terms would net around $779 million for the city over 30 years. And that would come from revenue or from other cost savings. Where do those calculations come in your estimation?
Well, I mean, we're talking about, first off, a lot of this money should have gone to the city to begin with. We're talking about tax revenues that should have been realized by the city. So that's a big chunk of it. And the other thing are just a number of community benefits that, frankly, Mayor Bowser should have gotten up front. And I'd even say the commanders almost should have offered to begin with, because just for this level of public investment, $1 billion upfront, and to think about just generously saying that, yeah, okay, it's $770 million. We're talking about probably, $25, $30 million a year, which against $1 billion is not that large of a financial return. And that's even, as I said, when you say that the city probably would have been getting tens of millions in tax revenues, especially if the stadium generates all of these revenues that they're promising, then again, the deal doesn't look anywhere near as good in that light.
CityCast DC is made possible by the Peabody Institute of the Johns Hopkins University, presenting the Peabody Performance Series, a full season of free concerts at the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center located at 555 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. The Peabody Performance Series brings one of the nation's leading conservatories to the heart of D.C. with concerts and programs spanning jazz, classical, chamber music, opera, and dance. Highlights this season include the Graduate Jazz Ensemble on October 31st, and in January, the Nexus Grant, featuring 2 masterclasses and a reception with internationally renowned conductor Marin Alsop and the National Philharmonic. While all events are free, tickets are required for entry. Explore the full performance schedule, find out more details, and reserve your tickets early at washingtondc.jhu.edu.
Experience the glamour of old Hollywood at the Library of Congress on September 18th, when they'll host the 75th anniversary screening of Oscar-winning classic All About Eve, starring Bette Davis and Marilyn Monroe. The evening includes a special introduction to the film by library film preservation experts, as well as a curated display of library treasures, music, dancing, photo ops, and themed cocktails. Reserve free tickets to All About Eve at loc.gov/live.
When you talk about the benefits that the commanders should have offered up front, what are some of those benefits that are in your mind?
I think the community benefits agreement is a must. So many times when people are talking about the benefits of sports teams, they talk about that there will be more people who are inspired to go out and exercise and participate in recreation. Whether or not that really happens, again, that's a separate question that we're not going to get into today. But if that's going to be the one of the benefits, the Commanders of this whatever sports team should be in the business of facilitating that. And then I'm sure that there are a lot of things, again, that are going to be on the new campus, as it were, with the sportsplex, the playing fields. At a minimum, the team should be funding some public recreation programs. And it will be great for the city, but it will also look really good for the Commanders organization, especially if they're getting this type of public subsidy.
So I know part of the public subsidy stuff that has people riled up is with regards to housing. I know a lot has been made about that surrounding development and what and where DC can take it on. I know one of the things that Christina Henderson said to the council is that they've admitted that they have been slow on things like this. Think about the McMillan Sand Filtration Site, which took forever. Do you think that this deal with the Commanders actually might force council to move quicker to build housing, which we know DC needs?
I would hope so. I think that certainly it's a start that the Commanders organization, that the ownership is going to build 6,000 housing units. My question with that promise is a matter of when. The Commanders, the ownership has made billions of dollars investing in all kinds of things. But as far as taking a look through the roster, there's no real property developer, certainly not residential real estate. And if we take a look at the Bullets Capitals, Abe Poland, he was somebody who built this area out. The Lerner family with the Nationals, they are property developers. Who's the property developer in the Commanders ownership group? I'm sure they will go out and get good people to do it, but they don't necessarily have that type of experience. And then the question is, when will these units get built? Because that's the thing that's going to be most impactful for the city. But there's a lot of upfront capital that the Commanders ownership that they'll have to risk. And they might not feel comfortable about doing it. So what are the performance guarantees that the city is asking for? And what are the penalties for not achieving those dates? And yes, Chairman Mendelson was able to get something that had a few guarantees, but frankly, it's not toothless, but it doesn't really bite if the Commanders don't reach those commitments.
So I know council is scheduled to have a second vote on this deal when they come back from their August recess. If I'm a council member and you want me to flip to a yes, there's currently 3 people who aren't a yes right now, but right now the Commanders have this in the bag. What would you, if you're a no right now, want to see to make your vote a yes? Or what would make your yes feel better to vote for this deal?
Ooh, I'd probably try to get more benefits, more guarantees, just a little bit more clarity from the Commanders saying that we will reach these targets by a certain date. We will offer these greater community benefits. Okay, yes, they have gone out and made these additional commitments that are supposedly worth $750 million. I don't think that is the best deal that could have been negotiated because, frankly, the Commanders, they're sitting out in suburban Landover. That site is not a great site. Moving into the district, returning to RFK, returning to that spiritual home of the franchise, and then getting $1 billion in support to build the stadium, and then having this financial opportunity to be the master developer on 135 acres on a generational opportunity. I haven't seen anything that says how much that is worth as part of this deal. And it's probably worth billions.
How much leverage does council, you think, have left, and how much opportunity is there in your eyes for them to make this deal better, and for the mayor to make this deal better too?
At what point will the Commanders really walk away? Virginia isn't really a alternative because they've never been able to get their act together on public funding of sports facilities, which I consider to be a good thing that they've never gotten their act together. The state of Maryland, there is, of course, the Maryland Stadium Authority. Governor Moore really wants to get a deal done. But at the end of the day, the Commanders want the RFK site. And it feels like Washington in this process is no better than it was with the Expos 20 years ago, that over a generation, Major League Baseball kept passing Washington, D.C. by. So at that point, Mayor Williams figured it's better to overpay in order to bring baseball back to Washington than to try to squeeze every nickel out of the deal. Whereas, what are the Commanders going to do? Are the Commanders going to pick up and move to St. Louis? Are they going to move to another city somewhere in the United States and leave Washington, D.C. without a football franchise? I find that opportunity or that outcome to be highly unlikely. They are staying in Washington. And it just doesn't feel like Mayor Bowser or the council has felt like they have any leverage in this process, whereas they have a lot more than they seem to be wanting to actually use.
I know people look at this situation and think that people might actually follow through with it. For example, the Oakland franchises who moved out of Oakland now are in Las Vegas. Are you saying that there's no chance, basically, that the Commanders up and move to, as you said, St. Louis, Portland, Oregon, something like that?
The Oakland situation, I won't call it a one-off, but there are a lot of local factors and California-type factors that just made that deal impossible to close. Plus, Oakland is a much smaller city. It's part of the Bay Area, but the Raiders, they were sharing it with the 49ers. The Athletics were, frankly, second fiddle to the Giants the entire time. This is Washington, D.C. It's the nation's capital. It's not Los Angeles. Certainly, we don't have the type of leverage with the NFL that Los Angeles possessed. Frankly, Los Angeles got a great deal. Stan Kroenke invested $5 billion of his own to build SoFi Stadium and the mixed-use development around it. Stan Kroenke is also one of the leading developers in the nation, so he really knew what he was doing. And Los Angeles came out of it with not just one NFL team, but two. And Kroenke has a beautiful venue that Los Angeles is justifiably proud of and didn't have to spend any public money to do it. In Washington, can we get away with not spending any public money? It would be nice to say yes, but there's things that need to be done at the RFK site that have to be done by the public. We're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about roads. We're talking about some demolition. We're talking about
new metro site,
sewers, a new metro site. A lot of things that, whether there's a football stadium there or not in the future, any developer is going to ask for, and is good governance by the city of Washington to make sure that environmental remediation is done, transportation isn't a nightmare. A lot of things that Washington can and should be doing. Is helping to build an NFL stadium one of them? Maybe not.
At Mosaic Theater, royalty, fate, and passion collide in the thrilling new play, Dodi and Diana. This is not just another historical drama. Egyptian actress Samira and her husband Jason are marking the 25th anniversary of the tragic deaths of Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed. But what starts as a night of royal obsession and remembrance quickly becomes something much deeper. Their own marriage is put to the ultimate test as they dive into a complex exploration of love, sacrifice, the stories that history chooses to remember, and the ones it doesn't. Dodi and Diana runs September 4th through October 5th at the Atlas Performing Arts Center. You can get tickets now at mosaictheater.org. That's mosaictheater.org.
All right, so I want to push for a little bit of optimism here, potentially.
Okay.
Maybe, if you're willing to play here. What about the people who are pumped to have this stadium and people who say things like massive concerts, like we're going to get Beyonce back finally, we might get Taylor Swift finally, and other private events will create an economic engine too? Are you saying, no, it's just not a good deal and there's not really a way to feel good about any of it? Or is there anything that we could feel good about here?
I will say that economically, if we're just looking at the numbers of it, I'm not going to feel good about the numbers. I don't think there's any way to feel good about the numbers. And it doesn't matter if Beyonce comes here and establishes a residency like they have in Las Vegas and sells out the stadium for a month. It's not going to create the type of economic impact that is being promised. However, to be optimistic, what makes a city great is not solely a matter of economics. We're talking about quality of life. And does having the Commanders playing at the RFK Stadium site, is that a net positive in terms of vibe, in terms of how people feel about being in Washington? Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool to have the team back in the stadium and the Monday Night Football shots going down East Capitol Street and framing the Capitol building. And there's a lot of things that we're going to feel good. And it's going to be neat when we have the Super Bowl in Washington. And it will feel really great when the NFL has its draft here. And all these things are going to happen, and they are going to be fun, and they're going to make people feel proud about their city. But to think about the bottom line economic numbers, unfortunately, that isn't going to happen.
Is there anything that we missed that you want to add or talk about?
Washington has a great track record of development in and around sports facilities. Back in the 90s, Abe Pollin invested a lot of money. I mean, he certainly got some great tax benefits going forward, but invested a lot of money to build Capital One Arena in Penn Quarter, and that brought in a level of investment into the city when, frankly, nobody was investing in the city. In 2008, Nationals Park opened, and we look back and we see all this development happening in and around the stadium and saying, well, obviously, Nationals Park had to have something to do with it. I think the story is a little bit more complicated. I'll say that it's like giving the rooster credit for the sunrise. The stadium happened, economic development happened. Frankly, the economic development was happening regardless. But nonetheless, Nationals Park is a good venue. It has brought baseball back to Washington. There have been a lot of great concerts there. We even won a World Series. In terms of the psychic pride of having a sports team, a stadium, and a championship, that's what Nationals Park is good for. And I think that the Commanders coming and playing in the city psychically will be a good thing for quality of life and how people feel about Washington. But bottom line, if we just take a look at the economics, that isn't going to happen.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Maybe in however long, if they set a firm date for when the stadium will be built, we'll be at a game together.
Great. Thank you.
Today, we've got a couple of shout-outs from CityCast DC neighbors. Francis B. is shouting out Around Town DC's free and fabulous wellness and community programs for DC residents 60 plus at locations throughout the city. James M. says Rainbow Vintner Circle is crushing it on their mission to create an inclusive and joyful space for LGBTQ folks and allies to explore the world of wine. As a wine nerd myself, I love this. And Alexander K. loves Green Thinker DC, the DMV's newest zero-waste store. It's sustainable living for the win. And we've got 4 brand new neighbors: Patrick C., Anna H., Randy K., and Allie J. Thanks so much, and welcome to the neighborhood. If you want to share your favorite local business or nonprofit on the pod, become a CityCast DC neighbor and send us your shout out. We'll read it right here. Join today at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey DC. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.